Today we're going to talk about how to write your bio, your sense of entitlement, and then at the end, if you can stick around, I'm going to tell you what I think is the most important thing you can do as a stand-up comic to make yourself better. Hey guys, before we get started, like always, I'm just going to ask that you comment, like, and subscribe. Again, that's comment, like, and subscribe. Let's get started. What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another Comedy Tip Tuesday. I'm your host, Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. This one actually was requested by a couple of bookers, and when bookers hit me up, I feel like a lot of times you guys need to hear what it is bookers are saying, because in a lot of cases we just think from the comics perspective and we don't think about it from the booker side, which I've been guilty of too. So if a booker hits me up, or a couple of bookers hit me up, which when it came to bio specifically, the sense of entitlement, a couple of people have hit me up. I'm not just on the booking end, but just in general, because a lot of that is happening with comedy. But when it comes to the bio, a couple of bookers were just like, hey, this is something you really should talk about. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the bio. We'll start with that. Then, like I said, we'll move into sense of entitlement, and then we'll finish out with what I think is the most important thing you can do as a stand-up comic to make yourself better. So bio, first things first. What I would say about the bio is, instead of looking at it as such a arduous task, like I have to write this bio and I have to talk about myself in the third person and I'm going to feel like a douchebag doing that, instead look at it as your last chance to be proactive in your marketing when you're going to be performing at a venue or when you're going to be performing at a show. Like, that's the way I look at it, and that really is the way I see it, because sometimes you don't have any control over the way the club is going to market you. Like me, for example, being a gay comic, or a comic that happens to be gay, a lot of times they would think, oh, we'll just market him to the gay community and we'll make it so gay people want to come out. And that's great if gay people want to come out, but I'm not your traditional gay comic. So in my bio, I'm able to explain exactly what it is I am, where it is I've been performing, and give them a better sense. And I've actually used the line before in my bio: Ty Rivera is not a gay comic, but rather a comic that happens to be gay. So that was me letting people know that, like, being gay isn't my whole thing. That's not all I'm about, because unfortunately sometimes in this business we do get pigeonholed depending on what you are, and that isn't at all exclusive to being gay. And I don't think that that's my own personal struggle only. There are people that get pigeonholed because of their ethnicity, because of their religious background, because of their gender. There are so many ways that people get pigeonholed in this business that I want you to look at it more like that. So a bio can be as short as a couple of sentences. I've seen them be as long as a couple of paragraphs, but I would say in this day and age with TikTok and the way social media works and people have an attention span like that, try to get everything out of the way in a couple sentences, like maybe a paragraph, maybe just 3 or 4 like sentences, letting them know what's what. The things you want to remember is letting them know who you are, where you're from, what you've done, and what you're going to be doing, or what they can expect to see. Those to me are the main things to remember when it comes to a bio. So you want to start off with your humble beginnings. Ty Rivera was born in Casa Grande, Arizona, the only boy in a Mexican family until his sister, that bitch, came along and stole his thunder and then was the baby, but he still was the only boy in a Mexican family, so he was still better than her. Just playing. That would be all about my life. But, just to give a little, like, originally from St. Louis, Missouri, let's say. You came a long way from St. Louis. Originally from St. Louis, this comedian is exciting, no holds barred, irreverent. Give them a little bit of what it is you do. First, start off with the where you're from, how you started, what it is you do. Then maybe inject a little bit of what they can expect to see. This exciting performer will dazzle you with magic and shit nobody cares about. And then close it out with credits, or what it is you've done. And sometimes when you're just starting out in comedy, you're not going to have a lot of comedy related credits, but I would say feel free to use acting credits, a contest that you maybe did. Just do anything to kind of zhuzh it up a little bit. One of my friends, a booker, said to think of it as your like resume cover letter. So that's a way to think about it as well. But like, definitely do pay attention to the fact that in a lot of cases, you would think that nobody's going to read your bio. And that's the way I used to think too. But I have had a lot of people after shows literally tell me, we didn't know who you were at first. We went ahead and looked at the website. We read about you. We saw you're from the same town we're from, or we saw that you actually used to work with such and such, because my bio still says some of the bigger comics I've worked with, some of the things I've done, like Comedy Central, the fact that I've toured through China, the fact that I was the first ever openly gay comedian to perform in Mongolia. I think it also mentions that I was the founder of the Laughed Out Queer Comedy Festival. I go ahead and list everything. And you'll also notice that the more you start doing comedy and the more legitimate credits you have, the less you have to give on the where you're from and what they're going to see. So there's that to keep in mind. And like I said, just really don't put too much pressure on yourself and think like, oh, this is something I have to do like a work assignment. Think like how you want to sell yourself, because the more we can sell ourselves, the better off we're going to be, the more the club is going to like dealing with us, because that's what they want to do. They want for our bios and our videos to actually move tickets, to actually translate to butts and seats. So that's something to remember when you're writing your stand-up comedy bio, is that you do want to sell these people. So it's a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what you're going to do, a little bit about what you've been doing, a couple of credits, and bam, you're done. And like I said, you can make it short. It doesn't have to be like a long where you're writing a novel or anything like that. Actually, a lot of people don't even like that anymore. When I was first starting out, that was kind of what they wanted from you. And so I did that style a couple of times, and that was cool. But then I started doing more festivals, and the festivals will usually just want to put a little blurb basically in the program. And so you learn to do shorter and shorter bios. Also include your social media handles. That's something very important, especially if you have a good following. Clubs love it if you have a good following. So if you have good numbers on your socials and good interactions on your socials, definitely do include your social media handles, and do not forget that, especially in this day and age. Sometimes they'll link them up right on the website so they can get to your socials if they want to check them out. I mean, a lot of people really are taking advantage of the digital world that we live in and the technology we all have access to. So definitely make sure that you're helping them to promote you in as many ways as possible, helping them to market you in as many ways as possible. Think about your bio like that. Then when it comes to the issue of people with their entitlement, here's what you have to remember about stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy isn't necessarily based on seniority. Nobody owes you anything. And the other thing is, sometimes you're just not what a particular booker or particular room is looking for. And that doesn't mean you should harass the shit out of that person. That doesn't mean you should turn it into a thing about, sexism or racism, or like, if those are the issues and that's what's going on there and you decide to call that out, I'm not going to hold that against you. But I'm just saying, honestly think about whether it is those things or whether it's you're not where you need to be in stand-up comedy just yet, and they are just arbitrarily saying, no, this is not, you are not for our room, you're not what we're looking for right now. I know that for some rooms, especially here in Vegas, plain and simple, I'm just too edgy for them. Like, they're looking for more of a tourist-friendly, not gonna offend anybody. And I could say, hey, I know for a fact that what I do, even though some people would consider it in the offensive column, isn't offensive. I know that people actually like what I do. I know that people appreciate what I do. And I know it would surprise you, a lot of the people that would actually go for what I do. But if they're saying our branding is clean comedy, our branding is family-friendly comedy, our branding is opposite of what you are basically, then at that point I just have to say okay and leave it alone. I don't make it a habit of bugging people, and that's something I would tell you, because that's something one booker mentioned to me specifically about the fact that they're cool with follow-ups, but they just don't need people hitting them up on every platform and acting entitled. Nobody owes you anything. And sometimes you're not being honest with yourselves about where you're at in stand-up. And for some reason, you have this sense of entitlement. And not only will you tell us that you think you should be headlining, you'll tell us who you think shouldn't be headlining and why you should be headlining, because you're on the same level as them and you're coming at it the whole wrong way. And it really is about your entitlement and not anything that you've actually accomplished or where it is you are in stand-up. Then, like some of you that have these issues and think that comedy is just based on you being around, or because your friend got something, then you should get that too. Well, maybe you and your friend both hang out, and maybe you and your friend both go to a lot of the same spots together, but maybe your friend started a little bit before you or is just naturally more inclined, and so your friend is getting spots that you're not getting. Well, you're not entitled to that just because you decided to pick up a microphone. Nobody owes you that. I showcased for the Laugh Factory for 2 years before Jamie actually made me a paid regular. Now, during that 2 years, I saw plenty of people that maybe I thought weren't as funny as I am, or weren't as good writers as I am, or whatever I might have thought, but I always kept those feelings to myself, and I never let that really play on my brain, because to me, that's more self-defeating behavior, and it's more about my entitlement than it is about my stand-up. So if a particular club owner or a particular club doesn't think that I'm ready to do their club, well, at this point, I'm either ready or I'm not. It's been 19 years. But if they don't think that I'm right for their club, then I'm just going to go to somebody that actually likes what I do, that actually understands what I do, that actually appreciates what I do, instead of feeling like somebody owes me something when really nobody owes you anything. And the best way to come at anybody is always through being polite. Like, if you really want people to respond to you, and there are times when at this point in my career, I don't necessarily want to be polite with certain people, and but I also don't care if I don't work their clubs or if I don't work their venues. I'm fine with that in certain cases. But if you're newer, my best advice, it would be to be as nice as you possibly can to everybody, to be as respectful as you possibly can. Like, I won't outright disrespect anybody, and I won't go out of my way to be impolite to people, but it's just, I'm not going to kiss your ass if I know that I'm never going to do your club. And even if I am going to do your club, I shouldn't have to kiss your ass to do it. So I'm just not going to put myself in certain positions. But again, like I said, that goes back to you deciding what it is you're going to put up with, what it is you're not going to put up with, and you putting down a boundary as far as that goes, and not expecting everybody to bow down and do what it is you think that they should do for you because you decided to start doing stand-up and you've done a couple open mics, and now you feel like people owe you money, people just owe you spots, people have to revere you in some way. That's not the way stand-up comedy works in all cases. Maybe you will eventually end up being that Bill Burr or that Dave Chappelle or whoever you might end up being the next of. And I get that. But right now, if, a lot of people are telling you that this isn't necessarily your time, or your time with their club, or your time with these particular venues, or even your time in this particular city, then maybe work on your own type of thing and see if you can build that and prove them wrong that way, rather than trying to make them uncomfortable, hitting them up a million times, trying to guilt them into doing what it is you think that they're supposed to do. Maybe instead take a different approach and be a little more proactive and be a little bit more of a self-starter, and then you'll rely on people less, and then you'll also hang less of your negative feelings on other people, because now you've taken you back into control of yourself, if that makes sense. Anyway, I said I would tell you what I consider to be the best thing you can do to help yourself as a stand-up comic. And it's very simple. If you've stuck around this long, I definitely do appreciate it. And even though my advice is going to be simple, I don't think I've at all wasted your time. And I don't think this is something you should just take lightly. What I would tell you is, when it comes to stand-up comedy, the best thing you can do is have an actual set. Have a rehearsed, I know this like the back of my hand, set. Because that is going to give you the freedom to actually have fun and be the comedian that you want to be. Like, you can do crowd work, you can do shit off the dome. You can just do all sorts of stuff if you really know your stuff, because that's going to give you the confidence you need to go out on a limb, to take chances, because you know that you have good stuff in your back pocket if all else fails. And so, like I said, the most important thing you can do is actually practice the discipline of stand-up comedy, which is having an actual set that you really do know. And when I say word for word, of course I'm being loose with that. Every once in a while you're going to mess up a word, or you're not going to remember it exactly the way it was supposed to be, but as close to exactly the way you've written this set as possible, and work on that discipline as much as you can just in the beginning. And then after you've really got it down, then start playing a lot more. And in between you can do sets here and there at open mics where you do 5 minutes of just all new material, but really do start to work on that discipline. It really will help you. And if you're having a hard time at some point, say on the road or doing a paid gig, and the audience isn't going with you, the fact that you know that set so well will at least give you the confidence to be able to finish out your set, do what it is you have to do, cover the time, live to fight another day. Because we've all had those nights, especially when we're first starting out in stand-up. Sometimes you just don't have the tools to change the dynamic in the room. Sometimes you're just not ready for that. But if you can at least cover your time, almost any booker is going to be like, yeah, at least you did what you were supposed to do. You met your obligation. And like I said, having a set that you actually know, that you actually have written out, you have the bullet points, you know how long that set's supposed to be, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I at this point have like a 45 that if shit just isn't going well, I know I can go into. I haven't had to use that in a long time like that in that way, but I definitely do have it in the back of my mind if it's like the panic button gets hit for some reason and I just need to go on autopilot so I can survive this set. Which again sounds crazy, but that's unfortunately sometimes the way you have to think in stand-up comedy. So that would be my advice. Anybody that has any questions or wants me to talk about anything on a future episode, please go ahead and leave a comment down below in the description box. Like I said, you leaving the comment down below in the description box really helps me out on the algorithm. It helps us so that more people can see this video. It gives me more incentive to continue doing videos when I'm getting a lot of interactions, because obviously then more people are seeing. And so I feel like I'm not just talking to dead air on the internet. So if you could do me that favor, like, comment, and subscribe, I definitely do appreciate it. This has been Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.